Welcome everyone to reInvent. Thank you for being here. It's Monday, and there is no better way than to start off with an identity talk. My name is Bridget Johnson. I'm a director in AWS Identity, and today we also have Shimon, who's going to talk about how NVIDIA brought some user-aware data analytics to life in their production environment. And so I'm really excited about this topic. So you have a workforce. And your workforce are your data analysts, your business analysts, maybe some UX designers, your developers, and they all need access to AWS. But as they pop around AWS, you want to make sure that Bridget is always Bridget and that access controls are honored based on Bridget and her groups. So this is what we're going to talk about for the next hour. First, I'm going to talk about our journey to a more user-aware AWS. Then I'm going to walk through the steps to create a user-aware AWS environment. Then I'll talk about connecting your corporate directory. I'll hit you with a hot demo just so you can see what's going on. Then Shimon's going to talk to us and see how he stitched it all together for NVIDIA. And so you can hear a little bit about how that works in production. And then I'm going to take what he shares, and we're going to go dive deep. We are going to get technical. We're going to talk about credentials and tokens and identity providers. And it's going to be a ton of fun because we have some really fun demos. And then we're going to take the same concepts that we learned for data analytics, and we're going to apply them to Gen AI. I'm in the first slide. I said Gen AI. There we go. And then for all of you who are sitting in the audience, and yes, there's some audience that are streaming this in other rooms, so I'd like to give a wave and hi. Thank you for being there too. I'm going to give you a cheat sheet. So if you have to take some notes, write up your email summary, tell your boss what you learned, I'm going to give you that cheat sheet. All right, the journey to a more user-aware AWS, and I'd like to start with a story. And what we have is AWS for many, many years, and is so great at it, has been launching and providing cloud infrastructure services. These is S3, Batch, Secrets Manager, Dynamo, EC2, Lambda, you name it, it's there. And roles were really great for this for several reasons. One, you had your corporate directory, so these were your workforce users. They could assume roles into your AWS accounts, have permissions based on those roles that they assumed, and then provision. They could provision Lambda functions, EC2 instances. You got it. But what happened over time is that we started providing these higher level tools, these AWS managed applications that were made for data analytics and different jobs to be done. And these jobs to be done needed to be more user aware. And so as that came to life, customers say, hey, we want to make sure that as you're using this data analytic tool, that users have access at each layer. We want to make sure that we can audit who has accessed what at every layer. We want to make sure that AWS is aware of the user as Bridget pops around AWS. And that users should be able to start from an application like QuickSight, like Redshift, like Athena, and just get their job to be done. So I would like to introduce a user-aware AWS, and what this means is you connect your corporate directory once. This is your identity provider. Then data access is based on user identity, but more likely it's going to be based on their groups. Is Pickles a horse? And yes, I'd like to introduce my horse Pickles. He's going to be our employee today. He's going to be our workforce user. He's game for a lot of things, so you're going to see him a lot today. And then you can light up some personalized experiences, and this is becoming quite popular, especially with Gen AI and chatbots. And you want to make sure that as your workforce uses AWS, that Pickles is always Pickles, and Pickles is always a horse. All right, so what does it take to create a user-aware AWS environment? Here are your ingredients. You're in a cooking show. These are what you need. First, you need your corporate directory. Most of you will have these already. This is your pings, your Oktas, your Entra ID. You will have these. This is where your users are defined, where your groups are defined. This is your source of truth. I am not asking you to change this. You're going to have this. It's going to be existing. It's used for all of your applications within your organization. Then you're going to have your AWS environment. This will be your AWS organization. It will include member accounts. And then within the member accounts, you have services and applications. And of those services and applications, where this user-aware journey for AWS is starting is with data analytics, so S3, Lake Formation, Redshift. I'm kind of planting a seed here for what our demos are going to be with. And then your workforce applications, and you want to power them with Amazon Q, or you want to create them with Amazon Q Developer. So lighting up a user-aware AWS is 3 parts. First, you're going to connect your corporate directory to AWS. And today we're going to talk a lot about IAM Identity Center because that is how you connect it once and use it throughout. Then you're going to specify data access controls based on identity. This is what Shimon is going to talk about. And you're going to use trusted identity propagation to do this. And that makes sure that those data services are aware that Pickles is a user and that Pickles is a horse. And then furthermore, you can enhance your applications with personalization. And that's when you want to take a workforce application, use generative AI to have a chatbot, and you want to make sure that Pickles can ask questions about a horse, but can't really ask questions about being a human, because that would be a little strange. So, AWS Identity Center, an overview. If you take anything away from today's session, I need you to know, first and foremost, use IAM Identity Center to connect your workforce to AWS. You take your identity provider, you connect it to Identity Center, and that is how things get lit up. You don't have to use all the functionality, but what happens when you connect is that we create a user store for your AWS organization. This syncs your users and your groups. This is based on SCIM standards. This is very common. And you do this once for your AWS environment. Once that's set up, you have access to AWS Managed Applications. And within the member accounts, your local administrators can say, hey, I want to grant horses access to use this application. I want to grant horses access to this data. And then as individuals and users pop around, they might hit a few different services or a few different data in one go, and that's where we propagate the identity, and that's trusted identity propagation, and that makes sure that Redshift can pass the identity to Lake Formation, then can pass it to S3, so that Pickles is always Pickles. I will say that Identity Center also has additional functionality. And it's not every day you're going to get somebody from AWS standing on stage saying, you don't have to use it, right? This is only if you don't already have a solution. This is only if you want to use it. If you don't use any of these 3 features, I will not be offended. It will be okay. And the reason I am saying that is a lot of customers have come to us and said, oh, if I connect my identities, I have to use account access and permission sets to grant access to within an account, like to within a dev account or to within a prod account. And that's actually not true. We've actually worked with some customers to turn this off. And so there are additional features. There's a native identity store. If you're a small startup or you're a group of friends trying some things out and you don't have an identity provider yet, because you're not grown to that scale, then you might want to have an identity and use the native identity store. You can create users, create some groups, emails, all that jazz. If you don't have an existing solution to grant access to an AWS account, like a dev account, to create Lambda functions, to create S3 buckets, you can use permission sets and the account access. And if you're a little like, okay, we haven't gotten to that org instance yet of Identity Center, then you can use the account instance. This is really good for companies who want to kick off a team and say, hey, go try that out. Let's see how it works, test the waters. And so you can just use that to get started. So this is Pickle's serious face. He's about ready to go into competition. He has something very important to tell you, and that is use Identity Center to connect your workforce to AWS. You don't have to use all of its functionality. Just connect it and then see what you want to light up, and you can choose that. All right. So how many times did I say connect your directory to AWS? Probably a lot, but I'm actually going to walk through what it takes. All right, so this is what it looks like. On the left, you have green. That's all you. This is your identity provider configuration. This is where you create your users. This is where you create your groups. This is all you. You do this probably regularly. And on the right, you have AWS. You'll have your AWS organization. You'll have a delegated administration account, so you can manage your Identity Center instance. And then the users and the groups are synced via SCIM. And that is how it works. So your source of truth is still the thing in green. You don't have to change it. You can keep it. We meet you where you are, connected to Identity Center. So you can see in today's demo, we're going to be using Okta. And in Okta, it's connected to AWS Identity Center. And before moving on, I'm going to show you what the Identity Center looks up. Now, I will say I'm doing live demos today. And so if they go wrong, you all can cheer me on. So let me do, I think this is what I'm going to do. OK. So I'm actually preloaded it just so to make things a little bit faster. Oops. Let me make sure I type in the right password. I'm going to sign in. Bridget in Chrome is going to be your admin today. So just keep that in mind as we go through things. The internet is a little slow in this room. So I might have to, oh no. You're supposed to cheer. Thank you. Let's start there. Maybe it will work. And if it doesn't, I'll go to the video. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. OK, we have one there. OK, so I have signed in. Bridget is an admin, so I'm going to go into the org management account. I'm going to be an administrator, and I'm going to show you our Identity Center instance. And I'm just going to show you the settings. Oops, there we go. Oops, there we go. We have our settings, and you can see that we've connected our external identity provider here. It's based off of SAML. This is all the information that's there. And then we have these groups. These are all defined in Okta. You saw that Bridget logged in, actually, to the Okta. And then we have some groups. We have some human users and some horse users. So that's just to give you a taste of what our demo is going to kind of be starting with. And so the Identity Center, the identity information goes to AWS. So you connect your identity provider. Users and groups are synced and stored in AWS. They are not created in Identity Center, right? The pickles and the Bridget that you just saw, those came from Okta. They're refreshed based on SCIM standards. And then once they're there, local administrators within member accounts can grant access to users and groups. Most likely, they'll be using groups. So now your workforce is connected to AWS. What's next? Well, you get to connect once and use access lots. And so I like to start with the user-aware data access, because that's what we're going to be covering mostly today. So you got Redshift, Athena, Lake Formation, Data Zone, right? And this means your users can single sign-on into the applications. And it also means that there's user-aware data access along with it. Also, you have your personalized experiences. Those are powered by good old Amazon Q, and so you can see a lot of different offerings there. And then at the end of the day, there's just applications that will allow your users to single sign on into those apps if you have it connected to Identity Center. All right. So we are going to go into that data access, and we're going to talk in detail about user-aware data access. And I'm going to invite Shimon up to talk about how it worked at NVIDIA before we go into the nuts and bolts.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay,
yeah, there
cool.
we go.
So my name is Shimon, and I'm a solution architect at NVIDIA. I'm part of operations and data analytics team. We drive product quality insights for our data center products, which support high-performance computing and generative AI. So let me give you some numbers. NVIDIA Blackwell architecture is the world's largest GPU. It compacts 207 billions of transistors in a single GPU and achieve fastest ever compute, 20 petaflops. Then NVIDIA GB200 is an exascale computer in a single rack. You can combine 72 Blackwell GPUs and 36 Grace CPUs. And you can combine 36 of GB200s in your high-performance computing cluster to run your workloads. So these are insane numbers, hard to believe, but it is what is happening right now. And behind this highly complex products is equally complex data platform and data. So data continuously flowing from our factories, which are part of complex supply chain. Rigorous testing at every single step of product assembly is essential for high-quality product. All of that produce massive amount of information. So we work with hundreds of millions of files, billions of records, and we have hundreds of tables in our Redshift environment. We support teams from product development to operations. All, of course, require instant access to high-quality data. So what is our secret sauce for data platform? Some, of course, no surprise, we are using cloud and AWS platform. AWS cloud is a solution that we use more than 2 years. We take our data from customers, from factories, from internal sources, and we store them in S3 bucket. And next, we use AWS Glue to process data and store it in Redshift. We minimize any unnecessary data movement by utilizing data mesh architecture on AWS Redshift data sharing. So all this data is available in one single place where users can query this data using different analytical tools. What was the business value of that architecture on AWS? It is definitely fact that you can focus on your business problems and business needs, business logic, rather on infrastructure. That was the biggest advantage for architect like me. But for our users, they could spend more time on utilizing data insight, rather chasing data where they are, right? So our first access management solution was based on two-step level approval process where the user manager and the system manager approve access to the data. And then next thing what happened was we manually provision access on Redshift. So we created user and password. We granted user access to specific group. So that had some challenges. So first of all, we created yet another identity on Redshift. And then, of course, managing credential is not also a nice thing to do. So there is some security risk to that. And yes, so we also gave some work to our administrator. That had to change. So the trigger was that at some point of time, some of our data becomes sensitive. And we had to improve security, so authentication and authorization method. Also, data owner had to approve access to data. And we only had 6 weeks. Why not, right?
There we go.
So the new data governance process was much improved. First, we created data catalog, where we got a list of all our data. We assign data owner. We also classify it on sensitive and non-sensitive. And with that, we set up automated workflow process. So user had to request access to specific data. And then user manager and also system manager had to approve access. But now data owner had to approve access as well. And the next magic happened because we have automatically we provision access on Redshift. So yeah, this was much improved. First of all, automation with provisioning of access, no more hard-coded user and passwords that somebody can see on the screen.
Yeah, we don't like that.
During presentation. And then, yeah, we actually reuse our identity. So yes, so solution was that we use IAM Identity Center.
Look at that.
We integrate our identity provider on Azure with AWS. We configure Redshift to use single sign-on. We use that groups from the workflow to set up role-based access in Redshift. So basically, there is like one-to-one relation between Active Directory group and the role in Redshift. Yeah, that was the magic that helped us to quickly link this to identity providers.
I'm always a fan of magic.
So from the user perspective, the life was sweet because I had to single sign-on, and then thanks to trusted identity propagation, user was automatically authenticated not only at NVIDIA, but also within AWS world. So she was authenticated on Amazon Redshift, and then next what happened was authorization. So authorization were based on Active Directory groups, which were linked to roles in Redshift. So here is an example of Python code. So no credentials here, right? Like, yeah, that is a big win.
Love that.
And there are few parameters like credential provider and issuer URL. These two things you need to provide. But then authentication happened with SSO, and the rest of the code is not changed. From auditing point of view, on the Redshift side, didn't much change, really. So we still use the same system tables. The big difference is that we are not using groups anymore for access management by roles. So what is the business outcome? So first of all, yeah, we reuse our identity on Azure Entra. No more credentials, so less work for our users and less risk. We reduce administrative and operation costs because we automated process. Our administrator doesn't do anything anymore. And these two things, single sign-on and automation, improve security a lot, right? So, and everyone can see that this is very scalable solution. And then with comprehensive logging. Takeaways. So yeah, we took our users on the right, which was 6 weeks, but in fact, we implemented solution in 4 weeks. So it tells you one thing, that this is really enterprise level services that are not only petascale and well integrated, but it takes away a lot of stress, because working with security and sensitive data could be stressful. But here we get a really like a great solution at our hand. So of course, moving to SSO was some work for our users. So you need to provide them a comprehensive information how to set up all the tools. And we use like 7 or 8 different tools. So Python was just example, but we have dbeaver, DataGrip, SageMaker, all different tools that connects to Redshift. Then we provided work instruction how to work with sensitive data on Redshift. And then I think that was done, as I said, in 4 weeks. So really really fast. Yeah. What is next? So not everything is done and never will be, right? We know that. So for example,
getting some real-time feedback here.
That's why I'm here, right? Because there is it is continuous journey, and we also want to use SSOP type of solution and role-based access with ETLs. So for now, we cannot do it, and AWS is working on the solution for that. We have trust by verify always, right? Especially when we are in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So basically what we are doing, we are running jobs that are checking for the new data sets and try to assess if it is sensitive, non-sensitive data. And then thanks to that, we can provide a specific role for sensitive data. So with that, I would like to thank you and
thank you.
hand over the
and thank
Bridget.
you for the feedback. We are always looking for feedback, so that's good. Thank you, Shimon, for sharing with that. So that seemed like a little bit of magic, like Shimon mentioned. And so we're going to go into how that magic is actually working. And my hope is that you understand what it takes so that you can go and implement it and also kind of see where we're going with this. So jumping straight into user-aware data access, we're set up Identity Center. We got to connect the data. Oh, hello? Are we good? Okay. We got to connect the data services to Identity Center. We have to allow passing of user context from one service to the next so that Pickles is known across the services. And then we're going to want to audit specific data access. So as we go through our demo today, this is the scenario that we're working for. We have Pickles, who is our workforce employee. Pickles will use Redshift Query Editor. So we have Redshift. In Redshift, we have local tables. We also have some access controls based on those local tables. We have some federated tables. Those federated tables come from AWS Lake Formation. And that data that Lake Formation is creating those tables is stored in Amazon S3. And so at every layer, Redshift is going to obtain Pickles details, use and log Pickles. And when I say use, it means verify access based on Redshift's access controls, and then pass Pickles. And then Lake Formation will say, hey, I got some creds. I'm going to obtain Pickles information. I'm going to use and log Pickles, and then I'm going to pass Pickles. And this all works because of those lines down at the bottom where we have identity provider there, it's connected to Identity Center, and that these applications can talk to Identity Center. All right, so setting up and configuring these data applications so that they have user-aware access. So first, you have to connect the applications to Identity Center. You'll connect each one, then you'll assign your users and groups. In our example, we'll see Amazon Redshift and Lake Formation. And then you'll connect each application together via trusted identity propagation. And in order for trusted identity propagation to work, you're going to define a role. For Redshift to call Lake Formation, we kept the standard. You still use a role. But this time, we're going to decorate it with some user creds. So I always think about a role going over to the next service, and it has like a little purse, and it's got some user credentials in it. So you can have that image when you're thinking about user-aware data access. All right, so this is what it looks like in Redshift, and if the internet's working, I will show you this in real time, and you can kind of see you go over to your Identity Center integration, and then the key part there is that trusted identity propagation, Lake Formation, you also will check out the role. And then you also do the same thing in Lake Formation. You go to Lake Formation and you connect it together. All right, so in our demo that hopefully is gonna load, I'm just gonna show you that information, So I'm gonna be an admin, and the first thing I'm just gonna show you right here is this is in our management account, and I'm starting here just so, because we're already here. Here are all the applications that are, and you can see some hints for our future demos. But you have Redshift. I have the query editor, because that's how I'm single signing on. You also have Redshift itself. That's the data, the local data. And then we have Lake Formation and Glue. And so those are application, those are those lines connected. All right, now I am gonna go to, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't press the button. Somebody should have yelled harder. Okay. Can you see it really fast? All right, there we go. And so you can see the applications connected. I am so sorry. Yell next time. Okay, and now I'm actually going to go into the data administrative account. This is where we're going to spend most of our time today, I think, as an admin. And I'm going to show you the Lake Formation and the Redshift setup. I'm also going to load all the pages, so we are excited about the future. Oh, don't go back there. Okay, So in Redshift, you essentially go here, you do your IAM Identity Center connection, you see this, and you have the role, and you have trusted propagation to lake formation. Oh, I don't want to assign users right now. All right, in lake formation 2, go down here, you have your Identity Center integration, and you can see all the details of your ARN. I can also show you that we are going to be dealing with some treats today. We got horse treats and human treats. And then I just wanted to show you the role that Redshift uses. So here, and you can see that it has permission. Oops, we don't want to delete that. It'll have permission for Redshift, but it'll also have permission for single sign-on, which is Identity Center, to describe the instance and all of that. And then same thing to call glue and lake formation. All right, so that's kind of our setup before we get started. So congratulations, you've gotten 2 checkboxes done to make this picture come to life. And then that role was that yellow line with the 3 on top. So the part 1 is the service. So a service is going to get a credential, and it's going to be a user-aware credential. Like I said, popping around AWS as a role with a little purse that says user-aware. Not says, but there's user-aware. And this is either going to be an Identity Center token, because Pickles has logged into Redshift Query Editor, and that's an Identity Center token. Or it's going to be an IAM role with user context, because Redshift has called lake formation and decorated it with user context. When a service gets this credential, it's going to do 3 things. It's going to verify the user session. Is Pickles still have a valid session? Is Pickles still an employee? All right, then it will determine the user. Okay, we got some Pickles going on. And then it will return the groups. And so that Pickles is a horse. It will send that information back to Redshift. And so at that point in time, Redshift knows that Pickles is still Pickles, and he's a horse at the barn. And then Redshift can make some decisions based off of it. And so with those decisions, first we talk about use. So each service may have some service-specific access controls. This is really important when it comes to data, right? So you might have some local tables that you need to define access to, or in lake formation's case, you'll have federated tables you want to define access to. And so Redshift will do that, and then it will also log the access, and it will log it as Pickles or Bridget, depending on which demo we see first. And same thing. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Now, I do want to call out that at the end of the session, I have some goodies to give away, and there's a pop quiz, and this slide is very important for that pop quiz. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Redshift. I'm actually going to go as Bridget, the admin. I'm going to show you the access controls first, as long as everything's working, and then I'm going to go show you Pickles. I'm going to press the button. All right. So we are in Redshift. I'm just going to open up the query editor here. Are you guys getting some feedback? Sorry about that. All right. I'm actually going to connect, or attempt to connect, via the database admin, and the reason is for the data access controls. Uh-oh, I think I typoed that. Very hard to type on stage. Uh-oh, we might have to go to... There we go. All right, and I just want to show you the access control table. Hopefully this will work. And you can see that horse users, so this is the group, have access to the outfit schema. All right, I am going to head over to Pickles, and I'm in Firefox, so I am also Pickles in Firefox. And this is our first instance of Pickles. We'll see a lot more Pickles going forward. And so I'm going to federate in. Pickles is also a user within Okta. Oh, sorry about that. Hope that works. We're not going to save that. All right. And this is the access portal that Identity Center provides. And you can see that Pickles has access to the Redshift query editor. All right. And so we're just in the local table part. I'm actually going to delete the connection. We had some caching problems earlier, and so I just don't want to cause any whoopsies, you know? Everybody's so quiet. They're waiting for it to fail. Dun, dun, dun. OK, so this is our local table. And based on the access controls you saw, Pickles should be able to have access. Obviously, I was practicing this demo. And you can see that Pickles can wear a blanket, a cooler, and farmer pants. So that's pretty great. And the last thing I'm going to show you as a admin, because I'm going to test fate with the timing of this session, is the logs. And you can see how many times I practiced my demo to make sure that it was working when we go through the logs. Let's hope that it goes. I should have done that before. But you'll basically see a bunch of Bridgets and a bunch of Pickles as well right there. And then you can, so these are the Redshift logs, and you can query it there. All right. So we found out that Pickles can wear pants. Isn't that great? OK, so that was all local tables. And we've connected. All of that was based on Identity Center and that token and that user awareness. OK, now we're going to talk about passing this identity. Now, this is done for you via Redshift integrating with lake formation, but I want you to understand it because it's going to come up later. So Identity Center is going to get, Redshift has the user-aware credential, Pickles logged in. Then it's going to say, hey, Identity Center, I need the user context. And I need that because I'm going to pass it downstream. And then it's going to assume the role with user context. It'll get some role credentials back. It'll use those role credentials to call lake formation. Lake formation is then going to say, oh, I got some role creds, and they're decorated with the user context. What do? I go and obtain Pickles and then use and log Pickles. That's what it's going to do. Now, why is this one of my favorite slides? Because we are using a role to call Redshift to lake formation. And what does that mean? That means that your security guardrails, everything you have done over the last however many years you've been working with roles, still apply. Those permissions are still honored. SCPs, service control policies, still restrict access if you don't want access. So this is why it's beautiful, a beautiful solution. And what I will say, one place that customers are getting stuck, so I'm going to scream it from the rooftops, is if you have a role, that Redshift role we looked at, and it needs to pass context to the next service, lake formation, it has to have permissions in the trust policy, STS set context. I can show it to you if you really want me to drive it home, but that is what needs to happen. OK, then lake formation is going to get the user-aware credential, role credential with user context, and it's going to have enough information to be able to log it to CloudTrail with you. So in Redshift, we had the Redshift access logs, and in lake formation, we have CloudTrail. You can figure out who had access what. OK, so we're going to try to figure out if Pickles likes candy corn. And I'm going to show the data access in lake formation. I'm going to query the data from federated tables. I'm going to hop between the Bridgets and the Pickles just to show you the access. And then we'll try to inspect the logs. All right. I pushed the button. You guys can all see it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go be Bridget, the admin, and I'm going to level up my connection back to Identity Center for obvious reasons, because we're talking about Identity Center and trusted identity propagation. While I do that, I have lake formation. You can see my tables. Here are some data permissions. And this is going to be based on the principal. And you can see here that one principal, and yes, I realize we need to make this more readable, but one principal has access to the horse treats to basically describe, add, and select, and also the human treats to describe and select. So that's me. That's Bridget. I can do the horse thing. I can add some horse treats. I could add candy corn if I wanted to. And then you also have down here the horse who can describe, which we're going to call eating at this point in time, it's look and then select, which would be eating. And then you can see that this principal can also look at the human treats, but can't get too much information about it. All right, so we want to basically just show the positive case here. You can see what treats that are Bridget's favorite desserts. There's some in there that are actually not my favorite desserts, but ice cream brownies definitely take the cake. And then you can see that the horse treats as well, because I'll need to go and get hay cubes to give to Pickles, of course. All right, so then we're back at Pickles. We're in Firefox. All right, so remember our Pickles outfits was a local table. This is a federated table. So should Pickles be able to see his own treats and eat his own treats? Can we get a yes, no, maybe? Oh, no. Not authentic. Oh, man. We're just going to delete the connection and connect again. Sorry about that, folks. There's something that gets cached in there that, I think I needed to press that button. Let's try again. If it doesn't work, I'll show you on the video. The spinning usually means it's going to work. There we go. Sorry about that. And you can see all of the horse treats that Pickles can eat. Super fun, right? Fun fact, candy corn is not in there yet. All right, and then what about this one? This should actually be a hard insufficient permissions, which is good. We didn't want that. Oh, do you all want to go see CloudTrail? All right, sorry. Let's go back to CloudTrail. All right, so we're going to open up CloudTrail. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you what happened in the lake formation land. So I'll go to the event history. I'm going to do the event name. We're going to do get data access. And then I'll just show you one right now. You can see that was we're trying to get access to the horse table. Hopefully that's big enough for you all to see. And then it was Pickles. And that was a successful run. Very convenient little column over here, error code. There's some access denied that we created earlier today. I'm not going to wait. And you can see that human and Pickles. So you can see what was failed as well as what was succeeded. Wow, we just went through a lot, but Pickles was always Pickles in the query, and Pickles' access control was always based on horse. That was his group membership. So we got through it all. That's pretty exciting, and we got to see Pickles at every step of the way. So user-aware data access recap. Each application must be connected to Identity Center. Each service must be connected to the downstream service with a role, we love that, and trusted identity propagation. That's actually allowing that user context to be passed between services. And then for each services along the path, they will obtain Pickles details, they will use it and log it, and then they will pass it to the next. And this will set you up well on your way. So what happens to third parties? Bridget, AWS managed all those services. They just do it. That was so beautiful. What happens to third parties? Well, a third party has something very interesting. They have an identity provider token. And what needs to happen is you need to turn it into a role cred, because that third party will want to call Athena, that calls lake formation, that calls S3 access grants, right? And so how does that happen? Well, what happens is we created trusted token issuer inside identity that says we trust the identity provider, we trust this application, that would be your third party, and now that third party can take their identity provider token, ask Identity Center for an Identity Center token, Identity says, yes, I trust you, and it will, then the third party can say, all right, I need the user context, and just like a service, assumes the role with the user context and gets IAM role creds with user context. And then it can pass Athena, and then Pickles in the yellow box will be there in Athena, lake formation, and S3 access grants. Trust and token issuers, I'm going to double click on this because we're going to need it for Gen AI. It's used to establish trust with your identity provider, the Identity Center instance, and the specific third-party application. Must be configured with the same identity provider. You can't have two different ones and try to make it work. Got to be the same one. And then to set it up, you have the third-party applications connected to Identity Center. That always needs to happen, so it can talk to Identity Center. The issuer URL, and then you do some attribute mapping to make sure email matches email. So this is what it looks like. You go into Identity Center, you create a trusted token issuer. You see Okta down there at the bottom. And then you see the attribute mapping email to email as well. I'll click around there if I have some extra time. All right, so we just went hard into data analytics and the user awareness and making sure that Pickles access was done all the way through. And you're like, Bridget, what does this have to do with generative AI? So let me try to see if I can connect the dots for you. So we have Amazon Q for Business. And Amazon Q for Business is really great for taking your workforce applications and then you power it with Amazon Q. And when you power with Amazon Q, you want to make sure that as Pickles asks questions, that he's only asking questions about the data he has access to or the things he has access to. You want to make sure that it's a little personalized based on Pickles' chat history, right? And so that is where it all comes together with Amazon Q Business. It also makes sure your guardrails are still active, and it provides connections to 40 of your popular enterprise applications. So this is kind of what it looks like, right? You have your data sources at the top. Today's demo is going to be all about your S3 bucket. And then Q will take all those, ingest, and do its great thing. And then it'll be able to talk to Identity Center to get the user and group context. Your user, Pickles, will authenticate to that workforce application. It will do its chatbot thing, and it will be Pickles. So if everything goes smoothly, Pickles should be able to talk about what? Treats, and not talk about the human treats, or maybe other things that exist in the world. All right, so this is what it looks like. You have your workforce application. That's that purple box. You want to power it with Amazon Q. Then you have Pickles. Pickles is turned to pink. And Pickles has authenticated to that workforce application. So what does that workforce application have? It has an identity provider token. What do you need to call Amazon Q? An IAM role cred. Does this look and sound familiar? It should. Great. Because on the box on the right is the flow, right? The workforce application will have the identity provider token. It will go say, hey, Identity Center, give me an Identity Center token, because why? We trust it. Then it will say, give me the user context. Then that workforce application will assume a role with the user context, get IAM role creds to be able to call Amazon Q. How does this all work? Well, in order for all that to come along, both of your workforce applications need to be connected to Identity Center, right? The workforce application and the Q Business application that you've created need to be connected to Identity Center. You need to have a trust and token issuer so that when your workforce application hands off says, hey, I got this identity provider token, give me an IDC token, we have that trust dance. And that's how it's gonna work. So this is our goal. We're gonna try to figure out, Pickle's gonna try to figure out what treat options he has. Apples could be one of them. I'm gonna walk through the configuration steps, and then we have an application about Pickles, and then we'll go from there. This is our last demo of the day. Okay, so we are gonna open Amazon Q for Business. Man, this is signing me out like very often. Give me a second here. Let's do this. There we go. All right, and let's go into Q Business. And what we should see is an application, right? It's actually a kind of funny named application, or we're calling it the Sweet Treats application here. You kind of just see a little bit, you got your chat things going on, your access, your application name, and whatnot. The more interesting part is actually what shows up in Identity Center. So I'm going to go back to the org management account and show you, because the one thing I want you all to remember if you're trying to set this up is that both applications need to be set up there. So if we go to applications, you saw this before. you see that we have the Q Business Application Suite treats, and then we also have the other Q Business application. And so both of these need to be connected. All right, and let's see. You can also see here the users and groups. So both human users and horse users can use this application. Do you all want to see this application go? All right, let's see what the demo says. All right, so this is our application link. It's pretty low key, but I'm going to be Pickles. I'm going to log in. And notice that I'm also just I have logged in. I clicked login. That was my Okta. I'd already authenticated today, all the things. So now I'm going to go to the web UI. And I'm going to start asking some questions. So do you think that Pickles can get ice cream? You can obviously see what I was testing out previously. What do we think? What do you think this chat bot is going to say? No answer is found. OK, let's just see what Pickles can get access to. And you can see that in, there we go. There's all the treats in sentence format. That's kind of fun, right? OK. And then Pickles is curious about an apple. And we can see the type of treat is an apple. There's two forms. Treats come in the form of flavored biscuits. I will say I've run this a few times, and the answers do vary. And then we want to know if Pickles likes candy corn. Let's see what the chatbot has to say about that. Like I said, it was not in the data, and so no answer is found, right? So ice cream was there, but Pickles didn't get any information about ice cream. That was my first question. Candy corn was nowhere in the data set, obviously not there as well. So that was how you can see that Pickles was always Pickles all the way through. All right. That's it, folks. But I'm going to give you your cheat sheet. All right. So items to take back with you. If you need to create notes to send out, this is what it. First and foremost, connect your identity provider to Identity Center so that you can light up user-aware data access and personalization with Q. Connect your data analytics and generative AI applications to Identity Center. Use trusted identity propagation to make sure Pickles is always Pickles. Create trusted token issuers so that you can do that third-party cred dance that we talked about today. Use CloudTrail and service logs to track data access. And then stay up to date with more user-aware AWS. This is a journey. We are on it. We'll be adding more and more. You'll see it. So sometimes we'll say the word, sometimes we won't. But whenever you talk about Identity Center integration, that's what you're going to be like, oh, user-aware. And that is winning, by the way. That was Pickles winning. See, that was good. Winning. Because it is a journey, we are going to be talking about it over and over again and expanding more and more. I will be talking about it at AWS Reinforce, hopefully. And so we'll kind of do that. I'll keep updating the demos so they're new and fresh. And I would like to thank Shimon for coming up here, and I would like to thank you all. Please do complete your survey. I read every single comment. I read all of the feedback. It helps me grow year over year, and I really appreciate you all walking all the way over here to come to this session, and thank you for being here on Monday. I will be over here to give questions.